The jewelry box sat open on my dresser where I had left it that morning, but the ring was gone. I stood there in the bedroom doorway with my briefcase still in hand, the evening light slanting through the curtains in that particular way it does in October, amber and slanted and temporary. The velvet slot where Sarah's wedding band had rested for the past 3 years, since the funeral, was empty. I set down the briefcase very carefully. My hands were steady. That surprised me. The house was quiet in the way that tells you no one else is home. No television murmur from downstairs, no footsteps overhead, just the hum of the refrigerator and the tick of the hallway clock, sounds I had grown accustomed to since Sarah died. I walked to the jewelry box and looked at the empty space again, as if it might have been a trick of the light. It was not. I sat on the edge of the bed. The comforter still had the hospital corners Sarah had taught me to make. A small discipline I maintained because routines are what keep a man upright when the center falls away. I looked at my own wedding band, still on my finger after 32 years. Then I looked at the empty slot again. Someone had been in this room. Someone had opened this box. Someone had taken the only physical piece of my wife I had left that still carried her warmth. The ring she had worn every single day of our marriage, until the hospice nurse slipped it off her finger and handed it to me with a look of practiced sympathy. I knew who had taken it. There was only one person besides myself who had a key to this house. My daughter Emma was 27 years old and had been living in the city for the past 5 years, ever since she graduated from college. She visited less and less frequently as time went on, which I understood. Young people build their own lives. They should. But she had been here 2 days ago, Tuesday afternoon, saying she needed to pick up some old books from her childhood room. I had been at work. She had texted me afterwards. "Got the books, thanks, Dad. Love you." I had replied with a thumbs-up emoji, which was the extent of my comfort with technology. I had not gone upstairs when I got home that evening. There had been no reason to. Now I stood and walked to Emma's old room at the end of the hall. The door was open. The bookshelves looked exactly as they always did, still full. I counted the spines. None were missing. I stood there for a long moment, and then I went back to my bedroom and sat in the reading chair by the window and called her number. She answered on the 4th ring, breathless. "Hey, Dad, what's up? I'm literally running to meet Kelsey for dinner. Can I call you back?" "Your mother's wedding ring is missing from my jewelry box," I said. My voice was very calm. There was a pause. Not long, but present. "What? That's crazy. Are you sure you didn't move it?" "I haven't moved it in 3 years." "Well, I don't know what to tell you. Maybe you should check. Around the house? Sometimes things fall behind furniture or whatever. Listen, I really have to run. I'll call you later, okay?" "You were here on Tuesday." Another pause, slightly longer. "Dad, are you seriously accusing me of stealing Mom's ring?" "I'm asking if you've seen it." "I came to get books. I didn't go into your room. I would never touch Mom's ring. I can't believe you're even suggesting this." Her voice had risen, acquired an edge of offense that felt rehearsed. "I have to go. We'll talk later." She hung up before I could respond. I sat with the phone in my hand and watched the light continue to fade outside my window. The maple tree in the yard was losing its leaves. I had meant to rake them this weekend. Small tasks anchor a man to forward motion. I did not call Emma back that evening. Instead, I made myself a simple dinner, a chicken breast and roasted vegetables, and ate it at the kitchen table while reading the same page of a biography I had been working through for weeks. After dinner, I washed the dishes by hand, dried them, put them away. Then I went upstairs and stood in front of the jewelry box again. The box itself was walnut, handcrafted, a gift from Sarah's father on our 10th anniversary. Inside were a few other pieces: Sarah's pearl earrings, which had been her grandmother's, a silver bracelet I had given her on our 20th anniversary, a brooch shaped like a bird, costume jewelry, really, but she had loved it, and the empty slot where her wedding band should have been, a simple gold ring, size 6, with an inscription inside that read, "Forever J," in script so small you needed reading glasses to make it out. I had watched that ring on her finger for 32 years, through pregnancies and grocery shopping and arguments about money and laughter over terrible movies and the long, terrible months of her illness when her hands grew thin and the ring began to slip. The nurse had given it to me in a small plastic bag along with her other effects. I had not been able to wear it or sell it or give it away. I had only been able to place it in this box and know it was here, a tether to the life we had built together, the evidence that it had been real. Now it was gone, and my daughter had lied to me on the phone. I slept poorly that night. Not because I was angry, though perhaps I should have been. Mostly, I felt a kind of hollow curiosity, a need to understand the shape of what had happened. Emma had been difficult since her mother died. Distant. She had skipped the 1-year anniversary gathering I had organized, claiming a work conflict that I later discovered had been fabricated. She had asked me for money twice in the past year, once for rent, once for what she called a professional development course, and I had sent it without question because she was my daughter and I wanted to help. I had assumed grief worked differently in the young, that she needed space to process the loss in her own way. But this was different. This was theft, and it was calculated. She had come into my home with a pretext, gone into my private space, and taken the one thing she knew I could not bear to lose. And then she had lied about it with remarkable ease. I wanted to know why. The next morning I called in sick to work for the first time in 11 years. I taught economics at the community college, a job I had held since Emma was in elementary school. It was a Thursday, which meant I would miss 2 sections and office hours. I sent careful emails to my students and my department chair. Then I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and began to search. I started with the most obvious places, local pawn shops. I called 6 of them within a 20-mile radius, describing the ring in detail. None had seen it. I tried jewelry buyers, the kind that advertise cash for gold on peeling billboards. Nothing. I expanded my search to online marketplaces, scrolling through hundreds of listings for gold wedding bands, looking for that particular width, that particular color of gold, some hint of the inscription. Hours passed. The coffee grew cold. And then, on an estate auction website I had never heard of, I found it. The listing was simple. Vintage 14K gold wedding band, size 6, excellent condition. The photograph showed the ring resting on a black velvet pad under bright light. I enlarged the image. There, just barely visible at the inner edge, I could see the beginning of the inscription. The F of forever. The curve of the comma. My hands went still on the keyboard. The listing had been posted 3 days ago. The seller's username was Emma Claire 2024, which was my daughter's first and middle name. The auction was live, currently sitting at $240, and it would close in 4 days. I sat back in my chair. Something in my chest felt very tight, and then very loose, as though a knot had come undone. This was not impulsive. She had photographed the ring, written a description, created an auction, set a price. This was deliberate. This was need, or greed, or some combination I did not yet understand. I thought of the money I had sent her. I thought of the lie about the books. I clicked on the seller profile. The account had been created 3 days ago. There were no other listings, no purchase history, no reviews, just this one item. My wife's ring, offered to strangers for cash. I closed the laptop and walked to the window. The neighbor's dog was barking at something invisible. A mail truck moved slowly down the street. The world continued in its ordinary patterns, while I stood in my kitchen trying to understand how my daughter had become someone I did not recognize. I knew what I needed to do, but I wanted to be certain first. I wanted to see the betrayal clearly, without anger clouding my judgment. So I opened the laptop again and sent Emma a text message. "Have you had any luck finding your mother's ring? I've looked everywhere in the house." I wanted to see if she would maintain the fiction, or if she would confess. Her reply came 20 minutes later. "No, I haven't seen it, but I'll keep an eye out. Maybe you left it somewhere else? Try checking your car or your office." I read the message 3 times. The suggestion that I might have taken Sarah's ring to my office, that I might have been so careless with it, struck me as particularly cruel. It meant she thought I was foolish, or senile, or so consumed with grief that I had lost track of basic reality. It meant she had no intention of telling me the truth. I made myself a sandwich for lunch and ate it carefully. Then I created a new email address under a false name. I set up a payment account linked to a credit card I rarely used. I went back to the auction site and placed a bid on my wife's ring. I bid $500, which was well above the current price and likely to discourage other bidders. I wanted this done quickly. My bid was accepted immediately. I became the leading bidder on my own wife's wedding ring, purchasing it from my own daughter, who believed I was a stranger. The irony was not lost on me, but I took no pleasure in it. This was simply the next step in understanding what had happened to my family. Over the next 4 days, I watched the auction. No one else bid against me. The ring would be mine again, bought back from my own daughter for $500, more than twice what it was probably worth in gold weight. I thought about that cost, about what it represented, about the money I had already given Emma, money she had apparently needed so badly that she would steal from me to get more. On Friday evening, Emma called. "Hey, Dad, just checking in. How's your week been?" Her voice was light, casual. I was sitting in my reading chair with a book open on my lap that I had not read a single word of. "Quiet," I said. "I've been thinking about your mother." "Yeah," she said. There was a sound in the background, music or traffic. "I think about her too. Listen, I know you've been stressed about the ring. I'm sure it'll turn up. These things always do." "Perhaps," I said. "Anyway, I just wanted to hear your voice. Love you, Dad." "Love you too, Emma." She hung up. I set the phone down and looked at my own wedding band again. Sarah had put it on my finger in a church in front of 87 people, her hands shaking slightly, her smile so bright it hurt to look at directly. We had been 23 years old and absurdly confident that love was enough. It turned out love was enough, but it also required patience and forgiveness and the ability to keep showing up even when showing up felt impossible. I wondered if Emma remembered any of the lessons Sarah had tried to teach her. About integrity, about family, about the difference between what you want and what you need. The auction closed on Monday evening at 8 o'clock. I won with my $500 bid. A message appeared in my email. "Congratulations, you have won this item. Please complete payment to proceed with shipping." I clicked through the payment process and entered my credit card information. The transaction was processed immediately. An automated message arrived from the seller. "Thank you for your purchase. Item will ship within 2 business days. Tracking information will be provided." The message was signed Emma Claire 2024. I replied, using my false identity. "Thank you. This ring is very special to me. I'm grateful to give it a good home." No response came. I spent the next 2 days teaching my classes and grading papers, and maintaining the ordinary surface of my life. On Wednesday evening, I received the tracking notification. The package had been shipped from a post office 3 blocks from Emma's apartment in the city. It would arrive at my address in 2 days. I had not told Emma my real address when setting up the purchase. I had used a P.O. box I maintained for exactly this kind of situation, moments when privacy mattered. But I knew that eventually I would need to reveal myself. I was simply not ready yet. I wanted to hold the ring again first. I wanted to know it was really back. And I wanted time to decide what came next. The package arrived on Friday afternoon, a small padded envelope addressed to the false name I had used. I opened it standing in my kitchen with the afternoon light coming through the window in thick golden bands. Inside was a velvet pouch, and inside the pouch was Sarah's ring. I held it up to the light. The gold was still bright, the band was still smooth. I looked inside and found the inscription, barely legible but still there. Forever, J. My vision went blurry for a moment, but I blinked and it cleared. I slipped the ring onto my pinky finger, the only finger where it came close to fitting, and stood there feeling its slight weight. Sarah had worn this ring for 32 years. I had placed it on her finger in a church and removed it in a hospice room. And now it had been stolen by our daughter and sold to strangers on the internet and bought back by me under a false name. The journey seemed impossible, the kind of detail you would reject in fiction for being too contrived. But it was real. The ring was here. I had paid $500 to recover what should never have been taken. I removed the ring from my pinky and placed it back in the jewelry box in its proper slot. Then I sat on the edge of the bed and called my attorney. His name was Martin Reeves, and he had handled Sarah's estate and our wills. He was 70 years old and careful, and had never given me bad advice. "Jim," he said when he answered. "Good to hear from you. What can I do for you?" "I need to update my will," I said. "Specifically, I want to add a codicil regarding a particular piece of property." "All right. What property are we talking about?" "My late wife's wedding ring." There was a pause. "Okay. And what do you want to do with it?" "I want to leave it to my daughter Emma, but with a condition." "What kind of condition?" "I want her to receive it only after my death, and I want it delivered with a letter. A letter I will write, and that you will hold in trust. The letter will explain where the ring has been and what it means. I want her to know the full story." Martin was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Jim, is everything all right?" "Everything is clear," I said. "I know what I want to do." "All right. Come by the office next week and we'll draw up the paperwork. Bring the letter when it's ready." "Thank you, Martin." I hung up and sat in the silence of my bedroom. Through the window I could see the maple tree, now almost completely bare. The leaves had fallen in drifts across the lawn. I would rake them this weekend. I would bag them and leave them at the curb for collection. Small tasks. Forward motion. That evening, I sat at the kitchen table with a pad of lined paper and began to write. The letter took me 3 hours. I wrote it by hand because that felt important, because I wanted Emma to see the slight shakiness in my penmanship that came with age, the same shakiness that had been in Sarah's hand during the last months of her life. I wanted the letter to feel like a voice speaking directly to her, not a document, but a conversation. I told her about finding the ring missing, about the empty slot in the jewelry box, about the phone call where she lied. I told her about finding the auction, about recognizing her username, about bidding on my own wife's wedding ring and winning it back from my own daughter. I described the cost, not just the $500, but the cost of knowing that she had valued cash more than memory, more than trust, more than the relationship we had built over 27 years. But I also told her about love, about how Sarah had believed in second chances, about how family meant showing up even when it was hard, even when you were disappointed, even when the person you loved had hurt you. I told her that the ring would be hers someday, that I had always intended for her to have it, but that I wanted her to receive it with full knowledge of what it had survived. I wanted her to understand that stealing it had not made it hers, that inheritance was not theft, that some things could not be taken, only given. I told her I loved her. I told her I forgave her. But I also told her that forgiveness did not mean forgetting. It meant carrying the memory forward with clarity, with boundaries, with the knowledge that trust, once broken, had to be rebuilt slowly and with great care. I wrote until my hand ached. Then I read the letter through twice, made small edits, copied it over onto clean pages in my most careful script. I signed it and dated it and sealed it in an envelope. On the outside, I wrote, "To Emma, to be opened upon my death." The next week, I took the letter to Martin's office. We drafted the codicil together, language that was precise and legally binding. The ring would go to Emma. The letter would go with it. The rest of my estate would be divided as originally planned, but this one item, this one piece of Sarah, would carry its full story forward. "This is unusual," Martin said, "but it's your right. Are you sure this is what you want?" "I'm certain," I said. He filed the paperwork. I paid his fee. I left his office and drove home and placed the ring back in its velvet slot where it belonged, where it would remain until I died, and then it would travel one more time, this time to Emma's hands, along with the truth. Emma called me 2 days later. "Hey, Dad, I'm coming home this weekend. Is that okay? I thought maybe we could have dinner or something." "That would be nice," I said. "Great. I'll be there Saturday around noon." She arrived as promised, pulling into the driveway in her small sedan that she had bought used 2 years ago with money I had helped her save. She looked tired when she came through the door, her hair pulled back in a messy knot, dark circles under her eyes. She hugged me briefly, and I hugged her back, and felt how thin she had gotten. "You're eating enough?" I asked. "I'm fine, Dad. Work's just been crazy." We made lunch together, sandwiches and soup, and ate at the kitchen table the way we had done countless times when she was growing up. She talked about her job, her friends, the apartment she was renting with 2 roommates. She did not mention money. She did not mention the ring. She asked how I was doing, if I was sleeping okay, if I had been to the doctor recently for my blood pressure. "I'm managing," I said. After lunch, we walked around the yard. The leaves had been raked, but more had fallen since. The garden beds needed to be put to sleep for winter. Emma pointed at the rose bushes Sarah had planted 15 years ago. "Those need to be trimmed back," she said. "I know, I'll get to it." We stood there in the cool afternoon air, and I thought about telling her, about showing her the ring upstairs in its box, about handing her the auction listing, the proof of what she had done, the evidence that I knew. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the tiredness in her face. Maybe it was the memory of Sarah saying that sometimes love meant giving people room to find their own way back. Maybe it was simply that I had already done what I needed to do. The letter was written, the codicil was filed, the ring was home. The rest would come in time. "Do you miss her?" Emma asked suddenly. "Every day," I said. "Me too." Her voice was very small. "Sometimes I feel like I can't breathe because I miss her so much." I put my arm around her shoulders, and she leaned into me the way she used to when she was small. We stood like that for a long time, watching the wind move through the bare branches, and I thought about all the ways grief can make people do things they would never do otherwise. How it can make them steal, or lie, or run away. how it can hollow you out until you're desperate for anything that feels like control. Emma stayed for another hour. We drank coffee. We talked about nothing important. When she left, she hugged me at the door and said, "Love you, Dad." "Love you too," I said. I watched her drive away, and then I went inside and climbed the stairs to my bedroom. The jewelry box was still on the dresser. I opened it and looked at the ring, back in its proper place. The gold caught the light. The inscription was hidden inside, known only to me and to Sarah, and eventually to Emma, when the time came. I thought about the auction, about the $500, about the username she had chosen, her own name, as if she had not even tried to hide. I thought about the lies she had told and the way she had looked at me in the yard, small and tired and full of grief she did not know how to carry. Someday she would read the letter. Someday she would hold this ring and know the full story of its journey. She would know what she had taken, and what I had done to bring it home, and what it meant about family and forgiveness and the complicated arithmetic of love. She would know that some things cannot be stolen because they are already yours by inheritance, by blood, by the simple fact of showing up and doing the work of being a family even when it's hard. But for now, the ring was home. The letter was filed. The codicil was signed. And I was standing in my bedroom in the late afternoon light, a man who had loved and been loved, who had lost and recovered, who had been betrayed and chosen forgiveness anyway. Not because betrayal did not matter, but because I had learned from 32 years with Sarah that love was not about keeping score. It was about carrying forward. It was about building something strong enough to survive damage. It was about believing that people could grow and change and find their way back, even when they stumbled badly along the way. I closed the jewelry box and went downstairs to start dinner. Small tasks, forward motion, the ordinary rituals that keep a man upright when the center has shifted. I chopped vegetables. I set the table for one. I listened to the sounds of the house settling around me, the tick of the clock, the hum of the refrigerator, the wind against the windows. Outside, the light was fading. The maple tree was a skeleton against the darkening sky. Winter was coming, and then spring, and then summer, and then the cycle would turn again. Time would move forward the way it always did. The ring would sit in its box. The letter would sit in Martin's office. And Emma would live her life, making her choices, carrying her grief, learning her own lessons in her own time. And someday when I was gone, she would hold her mother's wedding ring in her hands and read my letter and understand what I had known all along, that love is not about possession. It is about stewardship. It is about carrying precious things forward with care and passing them on with wisdom. It is about teaching the next generation not through lectures but through actions, through patience, through the quiet dignity of doing what is right even when it costs you. I had paid $500 to recover my wife's ring. But the real cost was harder to measure. It was the cost of knowing my daughter had stolen from me, the cost of watching her lie, the cost of carrying that knowledge alone while she went on with her life, unaware that I knew, unaware that I had already forgiven her but would never forget. Some costs you pay in currency. Some you pay in grief. Some you pay in the long, patient work of being a parent, even when your child has hurt you. Even when they disappoint you. Even when they make you wonder if you failed them somehow, if you could have done something different, something better, something that would have kept them from needing money badly enough to steal their own mother's wedding ring. But I had not failed. I had loved her. I had raised her with Sarah by my side, teaching her right from wrong, giving her every opportunity we could manage. And if she had lost her way in grief, if she had made terrible choices out of desperation or entitlement, or some combination I would never fully understand, that was her journey to walk. I could not walk it for her. I could only do what I had done: recover what was stolen, document the truth, and trust that someday she would be ready to hear it. The dinner I made was simple: pasta with vegetables, a piece of bread, a glass of water. I ate slowly, tasting each bite, grateful for the food and the warmth and the quiet house that was mine. After dinner, I washed the dishes and dried them and put them away. Then I climbed the stairs and got ready for bed. I brushed my teeth. I put on my pajamas. I set my alarm for the morning. Before I turned out the light, I opened the jewelry box one more time. The ring gleamed in its slot. I touched it gently with one finger, remembering Sarah's hand, the way the ring had looked on her finger for all those years, the way it had felt when I slipped it off for the last time, the way it had hurt to place it in this box and close the lid and walk away. But it was back now. It was home. And someday, in the unknowable future, it would travel one more time. It would go to Emma with the letter and the truth, and she would have to decide what to do with that knowledge, whether to carry it forward with shame or with grace, whether to let it break her or build her, whether to learn from it or run from it. I could not control that choice. I could only give her the tools to make it well: the ring, the letter, the knowledge that I had known and forgiven and loved her anyway. I closed the jewelry box and turned out the light and lay down in my bed. The sheets were cool. The pillow was soft. Through the window I could see stars, faint and distant and steady. I thought about Sarah, about the life we had built, about the lessons we had tried to teach. I thought about Emma, about the woman she was becoming, about the journey she still had ahead of her. And I thought about the ring, safe in its box, waiting for the day when it would complete its strange circle and return to Emma's hands. Not stolen this time, not sold, but given freely, with love and truth and the complicated grace that comes from understanding that family is not about perfection. It is about forgiveness. It is about showing up. It is about carrying forward even when you are tired, even when you are hurt, even when you do not understand why the people you love do the things they do. I closed my eyes and let myself drift toward sleep. A man who had done what needed doing, who had acted with patience and clarity, who had chosen the long view over the short anger. The ring was home. The letter was written. The rest was silence and time and the slow unfolding of consequences that would come in their own season. And that was enough. It had to be enough, because in the end, that was all any of us could do: protect what mattered, speak the truth, and trust that love, even when tested, even when betrayed, even when broken, was still strong enough to carry us forward into whatever came next.